Are you making me nervous?
Cheers.
Cheers.
To your health.
Cheers. Cheers.
Welcome to another session of Lessons from My Mother. I'm here with my best friend of nearly 20 years. Mr. Balu Elango lives in London. We see, I've known him since he was 16, and he is my best friend. He's my brother, and I'm here at his house. So this South Indian coffee, is it particularly from any part of South India, or is it
just a South Indian thing because we like the silver cups? I don't know, very strong coffee.
I love it. I said, Balu,
yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I'm going to be talking to you about your mum.
I'm here.
No. I'm going to be talking to you about your mum.
Oh,
talking to you about your mum, and I'm going to be asking you a few questions about the things that she's taught you that have made you the man that you are. Well,
I feel like okay. Yeah, I got it.
So we're going to be talking about that. Why don't you start by telling us your mum's name?
Sure. My mum's name is Tamil Shelby.
Tell me a bit about her personality. What is she like? Just a bit, not all.
Because no one wants to know all of that.
No, but just tell us a bit about her.
A little bit about my mum. So my mum grew up in a very small town city in India. That's where she was born. She was born in India. She grew up in a large family. With like a village where she grew up. Most of the family, the women in the family are expected to get married and move into their husband's house.
Yep.
She was raised in that kind of environment. What did happen was she was very keen on studying. She really wanted to go and have the independence of being studying her own husband.
Yep.
She went to medical school, met my father, they fell in love. She fought against the cultural nuances there and then decided to be stubborn and get married to my dad, and so she did.
Yep.
She was the first one in our family to come to the UK.
Right, yeah.
Because
she got a position here and then she
was a university gold medalist, and then she got, she studied a lot. I didn't study. Okay, you can't compare.
I'm joking. Your career's turned out fantastic.
Okay.
That was meant to be a compliment.
Okay, I'll take it. Okay, my career turned out okay. But my mum, in terms of what she went from zero to where she is, it's a much bigger jump.
Yeah.
And she did that. She was she was the first one here. She's very driven.
Yep.
Not like usual mothers.
No.
Not like usual mothers. Not like usual mothers.
There's so much to say. Because I've known her for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
So I know when he says not like usual mothers, I'm like, yeah, because she is very logical. She is more of a no-nonsense type. She doesn't waste a lot of time with trivialities. You go to her for advice, she gets straight, and it's up to you to be strong enough and mature and sensible enough to take it.
Yeah.
Rather than like, oh, she doesn't beat around the bush. She's very, and I love that.
Yeah. She's very soft with how she delivers advice. It's very sharp.
For someone like me, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I always say. So there's many things that you've learned from her directly, or you've absorbed because you imbibe things. One of the central things that I saw in your mum is the importance of having faith, but that faith doesn't have to be tied to a particular house or a particular religion or a particular belief system. More than that, it's about taking from everywhere, being flexible, and that kind of ties into how she is now and about the hard work that she's done. Tell us a bit more about that. How has that affected you? What she's told you about? Maybe let's move you a bit central.
A bit more central.
Yeah, everyone.
I think let's start with the first one, faith aspect of it. So I think one of the most memorable moments which I've had with my mum growing up.
Yeah.
I do remember when we were in India, she took me to church, she took me to mosques, she took me to Hindu temples. I mean, ethnically I'm of Hindu origin, as you know, but my mum was always taking me to different religious places. it was a very common thing. I remember when she did teach me, she was trying to teach me about faith at 6 or something. So I remember she took me everywhere. And I remember her clearly saying, "Balu, this is what religion is. Religion is about morals, and there's no right, wrong, but there's many different religions. People believe in different things, but at the end of the day, they're all people, and the same thing. It teaches morals in the whole thing." It really stuck with me because I assumed as a young child, you tend to believe that's the default.
Yep.
And you think that, that's what everyone thinks. Oh, okay, so this is religion is.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
It's like, it's a thing which teaches you morals, it teaches you faith and sticking with it, and there's someone there to support you, etc. All of these things.
Yep.
All of these. So I never ever thought that one religion is right and another is wrong, and I never had that concept. And I think that's it's a big lesson for me because it always stuck with me. I didn't realize how different that lesson was till I was much older.
Yeah.
When I was old enough and I was in the UK, living in different areas, and I noticed that people would often bring up this dialogue on religion.
Yeah.
But it was very much, you're this religion. How is that possible? You know? And I was like, oh wow. For me, it was like, wow, you see a difference? Like, I didn't ever thought about that.
Yeah.
Like you worship false idols or something like that.
Somebody said that to you?
Yeah, there was of 11 years of age. There was a very cute Muslim girl who lived next door to me. Yeah, and I was hitting on her. She was cute, man. Okay,
you were 11.
I was 11, but I had.
You've been a player.
I crushed.
You hit on the nurse when you were okay.
I didn't need to hit on the nurse. It's terrible. Okay, but so then we got talking, but then she said, "Oh, but you're Hindu, so you worship false idols." But I never thought of myself as Hindu. I never really thought of myself as any particular religion. I know of ethnic origin and so on. I know of religion, but I never differentiated between that.
Of course.
And then I remember being in university, and there used to be the Christian society.
Right.
People would say like, "Oh, okay, like this is the right religion, this is the not right religion." But I never understood the topic of this right and wrong religion. I never even viewed it that way. Simply because of what my mother had taught me when I was very young. Because I just assumed they're all the same.
Yep.
So it was it's a shocker, but I valued that lesson she taught me because she was right.
And I think that was one of the founding principles to our friendship, because we met in 2003.
Yeah.
Which was nearly 20 years ago, and I never faced any hypocrisy or bigotry from you. Ali's a Muslim, so we can't be friends with him. And similarly, you have friends from all religions and all faiths. Even here.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to be friends with you because you smell, not because of your religion. It's got nothing to do with your religion. But okay. Yeah.
But bigotry,
and that's.
You always had that open-mindedness. But was it common for your mum to have that belief? Was it the same in where she grew up, or did it come from your grandparents to her house? Is it common where they grew up? This kind of way of looking at the world.
Was it common? My mum says it was common from her generation, from when she was growing up.
Right.
When she was in her teens and so on. She felt that it was her mom in her town and village that they had a mosque next door, they had a church, and all the people in that town and village always interacted with each other.
Right.
It was never about the religious difference. Everyone went to each other's thing, and her definitely kind of never taught her any different as well. So I do understand. Perhaps it's from my grandma.
Yeah.
But my grandma is from a much more rural town where they have very strict rules and stuff. So she didn't go to study or anything. She got married when she was 14 and had a child and so on. But she always never. But my mom thinks it's also perhaps because when she was, her brothers had a bit more of a freedom to go around.
Of course.
Explore the city, but most of the times when she was going around, she had to go around with her mom, take her out to all these different places, temple places, and that's how she kind of learned this aspect, which I only found out recently.
Yep.
In fact, and for me, it was I never thought about how my mom learned it, but apparently my grandma used to teach the same thing, which I find very interesting.
I think it's fantastic because that's a need to cultivate it even today, because there's a lot of divisions taking place, not just in India, but in Pakistan, in Turkey, in Europe, all across the world, political ones, but also religious ones. And if we try to look at it from this perspective, for example, in Life of Pi, remember Life of Pi, he says that faith is a house with many rooms, and each belief system is just one way of looking at it. But all part of that house of faith. You look at it. I think that's fantastic. Another thing that I remember, because I've known your mum for 20 years almost, so she's like a second mum to me, and we've had our fair share of relationships with some wonderful people, and sometimes when I'm discussing with you or you're discussing with me, our parents always we ask them for advice as well, like, Auntie, what would you do in this situation? Auntie, what would you do? And one of the few main features that I saw that your mum used to share were be willing to compromise, be willing to forgive, give the benefit of the doubt, develop tolerance. And I always used to think, that ties into this whole wonderful, open-minded, flexible faith perspective that she has. But she's also said that you can never have 100%. You can't win all the wars. And if you're willing to compromise for, let's say, outside with your boss, with your teachers, why not compromise with that one person at home?
Yeah,
tell us a bit more.
I think she definitely highlighted interpersonal relationships. If you're going to compromise for something your boss or someone you work with, why are you not giving that same level of compromise to husband or to her siblings and partners? And she believes that anything which has that kind of heavy burden on your heart, you need to find a way to let it go.
Right.
Because otherwise it's going to affect you in some way and pull you down.
Right.
So she would wait. She's very forgiving. And the way she taught my sister and I used to argue a lot.
Right.
And she had learned father. In fact, she learned from her father because her younger brother used to...
Oh, your mom learned it from your grandfather?
Yes. Okay. And so her younger brother used to pick on her and be a bit annoying. And then it's something which she learned from her father. And then over time, I think she felt that actually, you know what, there's anything which is like negative, it's a useless emotion of being someone's making fun of you or something, and it's just gonna let it go.
Right.
And I guess like almost a meditative perspective of letting the dirt flow away in your life, and that's what she thought.
Your grandfather had this saying about forgiveness makes you what was that?
Yes.
I remember you mentioned it, a gem of a person or something like that.
There's a eloquent Tamil way of saying it, which I don't know.
You don't have to say it.
I don't know the Tamil.
Okay.
It was a human. A gem of a human is one who is willing to forgive. And I think if you're willing to forgive something, then you have it shows a good quality. And it's like your a gem which is getting like a diamond in the rough, which is getting polished more. Yes. So, and forgiveness is a way of polishing your gem.
Now, tell me, that's a deep lesson, one which Jordan Peterson can unpack in like a very long video. But what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And we're back. Yeah, no, we're fine, thankfully. I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
You saw it.
Yeah, for a second. It's not.
I think we're fine. No, I think Wi-Fi is okay. But no, my question was, your life, this perspective on willing to compromise with friends or with partners or domestically as well as professionally, and also be willing to forgive and move on.
But
it's just going on and off.
On and off.
It's okay. We can.
Anyway, so how did I take it within my own life? And I guess it's firstly I differentiate it. My mom, when she speaks about it in a relationship perspective, there's a bit of a barrier because technically my mom has only been on one relationship, really. And then now it's a different generation.
Good relationship.
It's one good relationship, but but she's talking about in the sense of a long-term relationship work, and I think that's great.
Yep.
It makes sense. There has to be not necessarily compromise, but forgiveness and being able to let go of things. Otherwise, those little annoying things kind of eat up at you over time. And I think I do try bring that into relationships which I have had.
Yep.
It's important to forgive, because there are certain out of emotion, out of feeling, which are not necessarily intended to. They're just said.
Yep.
But we can take it however we want.
Right.
And it's better to forgive, and it helps. Admittedly, I'm not very good at that.
No, you are.
No,
Stop. No, but that was an interesting lesson, because I find similarities. Like my mom has taught me similar things that your mom has taught you. And the older we get, the more we realize, oh, that's so right. When we were younger, I would say they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't been. But the older that we get, we realize, oh, they were right on the money. And I've seen you incorporate these teachings into your life. Mm-hmm. That's why I was just asking your perspective on it. Mm-hmm. Another one, a final one before we finish, is something that she said about, I remember she mentioned it recently, about commitment, about being willing to tie yourself or attach yourself somewhere so you don't, because as human beings today, we know how many divorces are happening, we know how many relationships are finishing, but at the same time, we also know how many friendships are finishing. We know people are willing to leave their or quit their jobs. I'm leaving. This disposability mindset that has pervaded us in the last 20 years or so, or maybe longer. But she was kind of arguing against it, rightly so. And she was talking about getting a mortgage and how it ties you. Talk a bit about it.
So I think that the mortgage thing is when she was younger,
right?
And my parents met at medical school, and both my parents were of the idea, no, we're not going to get a mortgage, we're not going to get a loan to buy a house, etc. Her father was very much, no, you should. There's nothing wrong. And the logic behind it was, if you get a mortgage together, then you have a sense of commitment. Now you're locked in. So then there's an external factor apart from this agreement which we have as a husband and wife, that we are, because we have this commitment. And because of that, there's more reasons for you to work with each other to try and achieve something.
Absolutely.
And I think it's she's trying to emphasize that it's important to give a committed relationship reason you need to lock yourself with. We're going to do this. We're going to look, no matter what, we're going to, as Jordan Peterson would say, like, no matter what, we're going to stick it with each other, and we're going to compromise, and we're going to get through it.
We're going to figure a way out.
Through
rather than just saying, no, this isn't working.
No.
At the first sign.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that you're going to be tied forever.
No.
It doesn't mean that you can't separate, but the goal here isn't to eliminate freedom, it's to curtail it.
Absolutely. And I believe it's because I think perhaps there's a difference which we see from our generation to our mums, and at that generation it's more common to, we're going to have a child together, we're going to have a house together, we're going to get a car together, we're going to have a joint bank, all of this stuff, because you're willing to have a lock your scent with this person to flow with them in this path in life. But I guess in our time and age, it's more, I don't want to be too locked in with this person, because we have a backup plan.
There's a backup plan, and it's always more about, I want to preserve what I have here, rather than be vulnerable and let the other person in. There's a big...
What if something could happen? We're thinking automatically of the worst case scenario we're preparing for. Very logical. And I think it's like, given my profession, I'm all about risk mitigation and all of this stuff. So it kind of makes sense to me. But at the same time, it doesn't give that aspect of the full commitment, which you have, and probably something which is expected when you are married to someone. And she values that in a different way compared to how I would.
No, because
it's a valuable lesson.
We've talked about mortgages and renting a lot. Would we get it or not? And I was off the mindset of, no, I don't need a mortgage, I'll just keep renting, blah, blah, blah. And this idea from her, and when you shared it, it started making me think, oh, no, you know what? I'm thinking short term, and I'm thinking selfishly, based on my own rational self-interest. And I'm saying, okay, this is how much you can save so I can invest it next year. But this lesson from your mother is more about next 5, 10, 20, 30 years of investing and keeping with something.
I think the idea is once view is it's the growth of a relationship of two people together.
Yeah.
As opposed to, yes, there's, of course, you're both going to independently grow. You're
Yeah.
going to grow irrespective of that. But in a relationship, it becomes about growing together.
Yeah.
You know, how are you going to do that? You got to create a scenario and a path which suits that.
Yeah.
And I don't think, oftentimes, I guess, we have more fear on that in our generation,
Absolutely.
which puts us off that.
Absolutely.
We have plenty of excuses, but it's, at the end of it, it's kind of fear.
Yep.
We worry that it's going to end.
Insecurities,
etc. And it's not the idea of no matter what, we'll do this, we'll make this happen. And I guess it's like you said, they have the long-term 20, 30 years of we're going to grow.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen in 5, 10 years, but we're going to stick with it and we're going to grow.
And no, my parents are exactly the same. When I speak to my dad about having arguments with my mother when he was younger, as all married couples do. And I said, Dad, did you ever think I'm going to leave this person because she's being difficult? Or Mama, are you going to leave my dad? And they both said, no.
Really?
In my mind.
Yeah. I've asked, and my parents have said yes.
Really? They thought about it, but they didn't, right? They're still here. Because my parents said, no, we thought that, no, now we have committed to this one person, and now we have to make it work. This is promoting staying in marriages for years and years, which destroy everything about your self-esteem. But we're also not advocating for leaving at the first sign of trouble. That's
Agreed.
exactly. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Have you noticed 21 minutes have passed and we were concerned about just 10, 15 minutes? So if I can recap, because otherwise we'll keep talking. I've known Balu for his whole adult life, I would say. Okay. Or his whole rational life. Years weren't really, but no. Okay.
It's awkward. Should I not have said that?
No.
On a public channel.
Well, no. But what I'm, if I try to recap, because everything, the faith, compromise, forgiveness, and commitment, they all tie into this personality of flexibility, openness, and I see it with her, and I see it reflected in you as well. And that's how those lessons are carried forward. Obviously, there are many more lessons we can talk about, maybe in another video next time we come on.
The documentary, when it comes out, keep tuned. You know, we're gonna get there.
Before we go, I'd love for you to say some in Tamil, if you can, or in English.
Yeah.
But because I get all my friends to say something.
My mom doesn't really watch social media, but I will say it to her. You know, I love you, Mom. You know, I love you with every part of my being. I love you. That's all I have to say.
Make me cry. Thank you again for joining us for another session of Lessons from My Mother, dinner in discussion, and some wonderful lessons to take away. Join me again next week, and I shall see you. Goodbye. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And